cyanide, the battlefield you never see, before the world wakes, before conversations begin, before decisions are made. A battle has already started. Not in boardrooms, not in governments, not on battlefields history remembers, but inside a single human mind. The alarm hasn't rung yet. The room is silent, yet thoughts move loudly. What if you fail? What if they judge you? What if you're not ready? Plans collide with doubt. Hope wrestles fear. Logic struggles against emotion. And without realizing it, the day's first conflict has already begun. Every human being wakes up engaged in a war, not against society, not against circumstance, but against their own mind. A student hesitates before submitting an application. An entrepreneur deletes an idea moments before sharing it. Someone rereads a message 10 times, then never sends it. A professional smiles publicly while anxiety tightens quietly beneath the surface. These moments appear small, almost invisible, but they decide futures. We are taught to see success as external: money, recognition, status, victory. Yet history whispers a different truth. The decisive battles happen long before the world notices them. Inside thoughts, inside interpretation, inside emotion. A Roman soldier sharpens his blade before sunrise. A modern individual scrolls through notifications before leaving bed. Different centuries, same preparation. Both are entering uncertainty. Both are confronting fear. Both must face an enemy capable of sabotage from within: the human mind. Philosophers, warriors, and thinkers across history recognized this invisible battlefield. Stoic thinkers argued that suffering rarely comes from events themselves, but from judgments about them. Centuries later, psychology would confirm what philosophy already suspected. The brain is not designed for peace. It is designed for survival, and survival requires vigilance, doubt, anticipation of danger. The very mechanisms that once protected humanity now generate overthinking, anxiety, and hesitation in a world far safer than the one our instincts evolved for. Your mind does not always work for you. Sometimes it works against you. It magnifies threats that do not exist, replays mistakes that cannot be changed, predicts failures that never arrive, and slowly, quietly, it shapes behavior without permission. People walk confidently past each other. Careers unfold. Relationships form. Opportunities appear. Yet beneath calm appearances, countless internal wars rage unseen. Some people advance despite fear. Others retreat because of it. The difference is rarely intelligence, talent, or luck. It is whether they learned to command their mind or surrendered to it. Here lies a disturbing realization. Many people lose this war without ever realizing they were fighting one. They mistake mental noise for truth. They confuse emotion with reality. They obey thoughts that were never meant to be commands. And slowly, their world shrinks, not because opportunities disappeared, but because belief did. Every hesitation becomes a missed chance. Every unchecked fear becomes a boundary. Every uncontrolled emotion becomes a decision made unconsciously. Life outcomes begin forming internally, long before action reaches the outside world. The greatest victories and the greatest defeats happen inside the mind first. Because if your mind is undisciplined, success cannot last. If your thoughts control you, achievement becomes fragile. If fear governs perception, even triumph feels temporary. And this leads to the question most people never ask: what if the real enemy was never outside? What if the war you've been trying to win in the world must first be won within yourself? To win this war, you must first understand your opponent, and your opponent is your own mind. So see down to why the mind becomes its own enemy. What if the enemy you are fighting is only doing its job? After realizing that life is shaped by an invisible internal battle, a deeper question emerges. Why does the mind resist us at all? Why does it sabotage confidence, replay embarrassment, imagine catastrophe where none exists? Why does clarity feel rare while doubt feels automatic? The answer is unsettling. Your mind was never designed to make you happy. It was designed to keep you alive. For most of human history, survival depended on suspicion. A rustle in the grass could mean death. Hesitation could be fatal. Optimism was dangerous. Fear was protective. So the brain evolved a powerful system, a threat detector constantly searching for danger. Psychologists now call one part of this system the negativity bias, the tendency to notice threats faster than opportunities, because missing one danger mattered more than missing one reward. And evolution rewards survival, not peace. But the world changed faster than the brain could adapt. Today, the threats are rarely predators. They are emails, opinions, expectations, comparisons, yet your brain reacts as if social rejection equals physical danger. A critical comment triggers the same stress response once reserved for survival. An uncertain future activates fear conditioning built for ancient environments. The alarm system still works perfectly. The problem is it never turns off. This creates cognitive dissonance, the friction between who you are and who you believe you should be. You want growth, but fear uncertainty. You seek change, but crave safety. You imagine success, yet anticipate failure. Two competing survival strategies collide inside the same mind, and the result feels like paralysis. Modern systems amplify this conflict. Never before has the human brain processed so many comparisons in a single day. Social media compresses thousands of lives into a single screen. Curated success, filtered happiness, artificial perfection. Your ancient brain interprets this as social ranking. Comparison becomes constant. Attention becomes currency, and entire industries compete to capture emotional reactions, outrage, fear, validation, envy, because emotional instability keeps attention locked. The more reactive the mind becomes, the more predictable behavior becomes. Overthinking, then, is not weakness. It is a survival mechanism operating in the wrong era, a mind trained for scarcity trying to navigate abundance. A threat detector searching for danger in a world made of possibilities. Long before neuroscience existed, philosophers sensed this struggle. Ancient thinkers observed that suffering often came not from events, but from interpretation. They understood that the human mind creates narratives, stories layered over reality, and when those stories go unquestioned, they become invisible prisons. Modern psychology simply gave scientific language to an ancient insight. The mind can be both protector and prisoner. Here is the realization that changes everything. Your mind is not broken, it is outdated. Built for survival in chaos, now living in complexity, it reacts faster than reason, fears louder than logic, protects harder than necessary. And until you understand this, you will fight yourself without strategy. Because winning the war inside your mind does not begin with motivation. It begins with understanding the battlefield, understanding the rules, understanding why resistance exists at all. And history shows us something extraordinary. Some individuals learned to master this conflict long before science explained it. They faced chaos without panic, pressure without collapse, emotion without surrender. Next, those who mastered themselves and changed history because of it. Sacktower Underthun, historical masters of silent power. History rarely remembers the loudest person in the room. It remembers the one everyone watched, even when they said nothing. Across centuries, power has often worn an unexpected disguise. Not aggression, not charisma, not endless speech, but silence. A silence so deliberate it forced others to reveal themselves. In the courts of Renaissance Europe, diplomacy was not fought with swords, but with perception. Ambassadors studied one another like chess players. Words were dangerous currency. Every statement revealed intention. Every reaction exposed weakness. The most successful diplomats mastered restraint. They listened longer than they spoke. They answered questions indirectly. They allowed rivals to fill conversational gaps, often revealing strategies unintentionally. By revealing less, they controlled more. This was silent leverage. Silence created uncertainty, and uncertainty shifted power. Because the human mind fears what it cannot predict. Consider the world of espionage. Spies were not powerful because they talked convincingly, but because they observed relentlessly. Their greatest weapon was patience. A spy who speaks too much exposes motive. A spy who reacts emotionally reveals allegiance. But a silent observer becomes invisible, and invisibility grants access. Information flowed toward those who appeared calm, neutral, unreadable. People trusted silence and confessed into it. Military strategists understood this long before psychology explained it. Generals who panicked spread panic. But commanders who remained still under pressure created psychological stability among troops. Calmness signaled control, even when chaos surrounded them. Their silence communicated something louder than orders. The situation is manageable, and belief alone could decide battles. This pattern repeats throughout history. Political leaders who paused before responding shaped negotiations. Advisors who spoke rarely were listened to most carefully. Figures who revealed little forced opponents to project assumptions onto them, fears, expectations, hopes. And those projections became tools, because when people lack information, they invent it. The principle did not disappear with history. It simply changed environments. In corporate negotiations, the person who speaks first often loses leverage. In interviews, the candidate comfortable with silence appears confident. In social dynamics, those who do not chase approval command curiosity. Presence becomes influence. Stillness becomes authority. Psychology explains why. Humans instinctively interpret nonverbal signals, posture, eye contact, timing, emotional control. A composed individual triggers subconscious assumptions, competence, confidence, dominance. Meanwhile, excessive explanation signals uncertainty. The brain equates calm restraint with capability, not because silence guarantees power, but because power rarely needs to announce itself. These historical masters understood a truth most people overlook. Influence does not begin when you speak. It begins when others start watching. Silence sharpens perception. Observation gathers intelligence. Restraint preserves options. And together, they create an invisible advantage. True power is often invisible. It exists not in proclamation, but in perception, not in noise, but in control. The loud seek attention. The silent shape outcomes. And this realization changes the battlefield inside your mind, because mastering silence externally requires mastering chaos internally. You cannot remain still outside if you are restless within. The historical figures who wielded silent power were not emotionless. They were disciplined. They understood timing. They chose when to reveal and when to remain unknown. So the question becomes unavoidable: if silence has shaped empires, negotiations, and human behavior for centuries, can it be learned? Can ordinary individuals cultivate the same invisible influence? Because next we move from history to strategy. Not theories, not myths, but practical methods, the silent techniques that transform perception without saying a word. SCTUEV, Rule Cluster Fund Command Presence. Power is not always spoken. Sometimes it is worn. Sometimes it is carried in the curve of a spine, the calm of a gaze, the precision of a step. Before a single word is uttered, before an argument begins, before influence is attempted, presence speaks. This is command presence, the art of embodying authority silently, projecting power without performance, and shaping perception before conversation even starts. History is littered with those who understood this principle. A general on the battlefield, silent yet commanding, could hold the line with a glance. A diplomat, seated with perfect posture, could intimidate kings and nobles without raising their voice. A modern CEO, standing still at the front of a conference room, commands attention through sheer physical authority. The first way to command presence: master your posture and stance. Standing upright, shoulders back, chest open. This simple alignment signals confidence to the subconscious mind of everyone observing. Humans instinctively respond to the cues of strength and stability. Controlled breathing is the second technique. Breathing shapes emotion. Slow, deliberate inhales and exhales calm the nervous system, reduce visible tension, and convey composure. A person who breathes calmly under pressure sends an unspoken message: I am in control, and I do not fear what comes next. Eye contact asserts attention, not aggression, not intimidation, but focus, presence, observation. A brief, steady gaze creates subtle dominance. It communicates, I see you, and I understand. Too little eye contact signals uncertainty. Too much hostility, the silent power lies in precision. Strategic stillness amplifies authority. Remaining motionless when others fidget, speaking only when necessary, creates tension. The room shifts around the calm individual. Observers begin to fill the silence with assumptions, often revealing more than intended. Movement can communicate control. Deliberate pacing and minimalistic gestures are the fifth and sixth techniques. Rushed movements broadcast urgency and weakness. Controlled pacing communicates confidence. Minimal gestures convey clarity and intentionality. Every motion is purposeful. The seventh principle, emotional neutrality. A calm exterior shields inner turmoil. Vulnerability attracts exploitation. Impulsivity reveals weakness. Emotional neutrality is not coldness, it is armor. It allows observation, calculation, and preparation. These 7 techniques form the foundation of command presence: the way you stand, the way you breathe, the way you look, the way you pause, the way you move, the way you gesture, the way you remain unshaken. Individually, they are subtle. Together, they are magnetic. Presence is contagious. Humans instinctively respond to calm authority. People unconsciously defer to those who project silent strength. Boundaries are respected, attention is given, influence is ceded. This is the battlefield within the mind before anyone speaks. The war for perception has already begun. Command presence teaches a profound truth. You do not need words to assert power. You do not need explanations to influence outcomes. Every interaction begins with perception, and perception begins with you. How you inhabit your body, how you manage your energy, how you remain steady amidst chaos. Mastering presence prepares you for the next stage: observation, patience, and the subtle manipulation of the social battlefield. Because silence and stillness are not emptiness, they are strategy. And strategy begins with your command over yourself. Section V, Rule Cluster 20, Regulation and Response. A single moment can divide 2 lives: the life shaped by reaction and the life shaped by response. History rarely remembers emotions. It remembers decisions made during them, and the difference between failure and mastery is often measured in seconds. The space between feeling and acting. Most people believe emotional control means suppression, but suppression is pressure, and pressure eventually explodes. True mastery is something far more dangerous and far more powerful. It is regulation, the ability to feel fully while choosing deliberately. Technique 8, pause before responding. The strongest move is often invisible. A pause. When provoked, the brain demands immediate reaction. The emotional center fires faster than rational thought, pushing words outward before understanding arrives. But masters delay. Abraham Lincoln, known for emotional restraint, reportedly wrote angry letters he never sent, allowing emotion to pass before action defined consequence. The pause interrupts emotional momentum. Even 3 seconds can transform anger into clarity. Silence is not weakness, it is recalibration. Technique 9, reframe negative emotions. Emotion is shaped not only by events but by meaning. Fear can signal danger or preparation. Failure can signal defeat or instruction. Stoic philosophers believed suffering often comes from interpretation rather than reality itself. Seneca argued that imagination frequently intensifies pain more than events ever could. Reframing asks one question: what else could this mean? A setback becomes feedback, criticism becomes data, uncertainty becomes possibility. Change the story and emotion changes with it. Technique 10. Regulate through breath. Long before psychology labs, Warriors and monks understood a biological truth: breath controls emotion. Slow breathing signals safety to the nervous system, lowering stress hormones and restoring cognitive clarity. Modern neuroscience confirms that controlled breathing directly influences the autonomic nervous system. In moments of chaos, breath becomes an anchor, not symbolic. Physiological: control the breath and the mind follows. Technique 11. Guide yourself with internal dialogue. Everyone speaks to themselves. Few realize how much that voice shapes reality. Untrained self-talk amplifies emotion. This always happens. "I can't handle this. They're against me." But intentional dialogue redirects perception. Elite performers, negotiators, and athletes consciously replace emotional narratives with stabilizing ones. Focus, observe, respond carefully. The voice in your mind becomes either your greatest ally or your most persuasive enemy. Technique 12. Visualize outcomes before acting. Impulsivity lives in the present moment. Wisdom travels briefly into the future. Before responding, imagine consequences unfolding. What happens after these words? How will this look tomorrow? Who benefits from this reaction? Military strategists throughout history relied on anticipation rather than emotion. Victory often belonged not to the strongest force, but to the most patient mind. Visualization slows impulsivity by expanding perspective. You stop reacting to the moment and begin acting for outcomes. Technique 13. Channel emotion into action. Emotion contains energy. Anger holds intensity. Fear holds alertness. Sadness holds depth. Suppression wastes this energy. Mastery redirects it. Many innovators transformed frustration into creation, adversity into discipline, rejection into relentless improvement. Emotion becomes fuel when guided by intention. Instead of asking, "How do I stop feeling this?" ask, "Where can this energy go?" Technique 14. Set boundaries against emotional hijacking. Not all emotional storms originate within you. Some are engineered by others. Manipulation often relies on triggering reactions: guilt, urgency, outrage, fear. Without boundaries, your emotional state becomes externally controlled. Boundaries are not hostility. They are clarity, choosing when to engage, choosing when to disengage, choosing whose emotions deserve access to your mind. Calm distance protects autonomy. Here is the hidden truth: regulation does not remove emotion, it transforms emotion into intelligence. Where others react automatically, you respond strategically. Where others lose control, you gain perspective. Emotion stops being an enemy and becomes information. The world cannot always control what you feel, but it constantly attempts to control how you react. And the moment you realize you can choose your response, you reclaim something rare: agency. Next comes the final evolution: not just controlling emotions within yourself, but using emotional mastery to influence the world around you. Section the Sepal, the final realization: freedom through mastery. Voices overlap, arguments rise, notifications flash, decisions unfold in seconds. The world moves loudly, urgently, relentlessly. But this time something is different. The same person stands in the same chaos, yet their posture has changed. Their breathing is slower. Their eyes observe instead of react. Where emotion once dictated action, awareness now creates distance. At the beginning of this journey, we asked a dangerous question: what if your emotions have been steering your life all along? Now another question emerges: what happens when you take the wheel back? A message arrives, once answered instantly in anger. Now it waits. A criticism appears, once felt as an attack, now analyzed as information. A crisis unfolds, once overwhelming, now approached with clarity. Nothing outside has changed, but everything inside has. Emotional mastery does not remove pain. It does not eliminate fear. It does not grant immunity from uncertainty. Instead, it creates space, and inside that space lies freedom. Freedom is internal. Most people spend their lives trying to control the external world: circumstances, opinions, outcomes. Other people, Yet history repeatedly demonstrates a paradox recognized by Stoic thinkers like Marcus Aurelius. The more you attempt to control what lies outside you, the more powerless you feel. But the moment attention turns inward, toward perception, reaction, and judgment, control becomes possible. Emotional mastery shifts the battlefield. You stop fighting reality and begin governing response. Life will always remain unpredictable. Markets collapse, relationships change, plans fail, people disappoint. Emotional turbulence is not an exception to life. It is life. The difference between suffering and strength lies not in avoiding storms, but in learning how to stand within them without losing direction. The transformation. Earlier, emotion was immediate, impulse felt inevitable, reaction felt justified. Now awareness intervenes. You notice the rising anger before it speaks. You recognize fear before it controls. You observe anxiety without becoming it. This is the silent transformation few people notice, yet everyone feels. Calm becomes presence. Presence becomes credibility. Credibility becomes influence. Others sense stability they cannot explain. Because emotional mastery changes perception long before words are spoken. Power without force. Throughout history, the most influential figures rarely relied on emotional volatility. They influenced through composure, through patience, through deliberate expression. When emotion becomes chosen rather than automatic, communication gains precision, silence becomes meaningful, words become intentional, actions become decisive. You no longer react to the world's emotional currents, you navigate them. And here lies the final realization. Mastering emotions is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming free. Free from manipulation, free from impulsive regret, free from reactions designed by others' expectations. You begin choosing responses aligned with values rather than impulses. And choice is the foundation of autonomy. The same crisis unfolds again, but now the individual pauses, breath steadies, eyes observe. A decision is made, calm, deliberate, precise. The outcome changes, not because the world softened, but because the mind strengthened. The final message: life will never stop provoking emotion. There will always be uncertainty, conflict, temptation, and pressure. But those who master their emotions achieve something rare. They become authors rather than reactors. They respond instead of surrender. They move through chaos without becoming chaotic. Control yourself, and the world loses its power to control you. Master your emotions, and you master your direction. Master your direction, and your life becomes truly yours.